The EU Energy and Housing Commissioner Dan Jurgensen has warned that the massive energy crisis sparked by the US-Israeli war on Iran will likely have long-term repercussions for consumers.
This is not a short-term, small increase in prices. This is a crisis that is probably as serious as the 1973 and the 2022 crisis combined. And this means that we are looking into some very difficult months or maybe even years, depending, of course, on the development in the Middle East. But even in a best-case scenario, it's still bad.
The war in Iran has throttled global oil and gas markets and rattled the EU as a major importer of energy. Jurgensen told reporters that EU governments remain very worried about possible jet fuel shortages, especially as tourism season approaches. On Tuesday, EU transportation ministers discussed how to protect consumers at home and at the pump after the head of the International Energy Agency warned that Europe has maybe 6 weeks' supply left of jet fuel. Kaja Kallas, the EU's foreign chief, warned that if the fighting resumes, it will come at a very large cost for all.
A second French soldier has died in Lebanon from his injuries. Staff Caporal Anissé Girardin died on Wednesday, the French president announced on X. The soldier had been caught up in the same attack last Saturday that claimed the life of warrant officer Florian Montorio. He had been repatriated from Lebanon the day before. French President Emmanuel Macron pays an emotional tribute to the memory of Staff Caporal Anissé Girardin and his sacrifice. Anissé Girardin was working alongside warrant officer Florian Montorio to clear a route booby-trapped by an improvised explosive device, the French Minister for Armed Forces stated on X. He came under heavy fire from Hezbollah fighters, lying in ambush at very close range. He was coming to the aid of his unit commander, who had just been hit when he himself was seriously wounded, added Catherine Vautrin. The French authorities attributed the attack to Hezbollah. The Islamist group, an ally of Iran, denied being behind the ambush.
Former Finnish Prime Minister Sanna Marin believes Europe is vulnerable without Ukraine and demands the EU build its own military capabilities and increase European nuclear deterrence. Speaking with Euronews on Wednesday, Sarin said Europe cannot rule out a war with Russia and so must adequately prepare.
Russia is, as we speak, they are preparing themselves. They're modernizing their army and they're preparing themselves to much wider fight.
So they're preparing for war with Europe? The rest of the continent?
I wouldn't rule that out. And we also need to prepare. And for that, we need strong Ukraine, because Ukraine has the largest, most functional and modern army with modern warfare experience.
Speaking about NATO, the former Finnish Prime Minister said the Defence Alliance is a different organization now than it was before.
Because of the changing relationship between US and Europe, it has already changed, and it is changing, and this is a fact that we cannot escape. And it means that we need to focus on our own game. We cannot anymore only rely on the US presence and US capabilities. We have to build our own. And now we are speaking European defense capabilities and European unity, European military forces. And I think this is extremely necessary discussion. And we should also discuss more about the European nuclear deterrence. This is a discussion that I see happening already and the necessity to have it.
Germany is reorganizing its armed forces. German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius presented a military strategy on Wednesday. The German government has analyzed how threats could develop in the future, which scenarios are realistic and which potential conflicts Germany must prepare for.
Selten war eine Militärstrategie so nötig wie in dieser historischen Phase. Die Bedrohungslage hat sich vor allem seit Putins Krieg gegen die Ukraine verschärft. Außerdem wird die internationale Rechtsordnung so sehr in Frage gestellt wie schon lange nicht mehr oder wahrscheinlich seit dem Zweiten Weltkrieg noch nie. Anders ausgedrückt, Die Welt ist unberechenbarer geworden und ja, man muss auch sagen, gefährlicher.
This rethink strategy includes air defense, long-range weapon systems, and the ability to conduct modern data-based combat. New technologies, such as artificial intelligence, will also play a greater role in the future. Another focus is on deep strike capabilities, the ability to hit targets far behind the front line. Pistorius made it clear that such capabilities will become increasingly important in the future. This includes long-range precision weapons that can be used to take out enemy supply routes, command centers or infrastructure at an early stage. In parallel to the reorganization of content, the German government is planning a significant expansion of the Bundeswehr. The aim is to have a total of 460,000 soldiers, consisting of active troops and reserves. There are currently around 184,300 active soldiers.
The European Union has formally launched the internal process to unblock the 90 billion euros loan for Ukraine and the 20th package of sanctions against Russia. Hungary or Slovakia may still prevent the adoption, but diplomats believe it is unlikely following the restoration of the Druzhba oil pipeline. The procedure is expected to be concluded on Thursday.
So indeed, once the measure is taken also by the Council, we can move on and without wasting any further time on moving on to the next steps in terms of being able to disburse the Ukrainian loan amounts to Ukraine.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said that the pipeline damaged in late January by Russian drones was repaired and could resume operations.
Євросоюз просив Україну відремонтувати нафтопровід «Дружба», який росіяни розбили. Ми відремонтували. Сподіваємось, що і Євросоюз буде реалізовувати домовленості.
The EU loan has been blocked for months by outgoing Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán. He has accused Kyiv of blocking oil flows for political reasons.
Thousands of high school and university students marched through the Czech capital on Wednesday to protest against a government plan to overhaul and reduce funding for public radio and television. The new coalition government, led by populist Prime Minister Andrej Babis, drafted the plan to scrap the fees that individuals, households and businesses pay to access the outlets. Instead, the public media would be fully dependent on the state budget. Critics say that would compromise their independence. The media's labor union said they were ready to go on strike if the government goes ahead with the legislation, which could take effect next year.
The first of its kind regional ecological summit aimed at addressing Central Asia's environmental challenges has opened today in Astana, Kazakhstan. Proposed by President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev 3 years ago, the initiative is being held in partnership with the United Nations. The goal is to create an open dialogue platform to develop joint action plans and build a more environmentally and economically resilient future for the 5 Central Asian states: Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, Turkmenistan, and Tajikistan. Leaders from across the region are now convening in a high-level opening session chaired by Tokayev. They are expected to adopt a joint declaration on regional cooperation in ecology and sustainable development. Water management has emerged as a central theme running throughout the summit. Tokayev has previously proposed the creation of an international water organization under UN auspices. The initial consultations are set to launch on the sidelines of this summit. The region continues to grapple with long-running crisis of the RLC, as well as falling water levels in the Caspian Sea, which are dropping by around 10 centimeters a year, posing risks to biodiversity and key shipping routes. A separate high-level meeting is also scheduled later today between the heads of states of the founding members of the International Fund for Saving the RLC. In total, 14 additional sessions are planned, focusing on climate action, sustainability, and green finance.
For a few days, Madrid was able to experience a small window into Macau, as the Chinese Special Administrative Region pulled out all the stops to captivate the Spanish public. During the Experience Macau Madrid event, more than 20 booths featured offerings of technology, culture, cuisine, and interactive experiences, from driving simulators to traditional workshops. The goal is to attract Spanish tourists who can connect to Macau's heritage because of the territory's Portuguese roots.
They feel like home as well as they feel Chinese. They can try Chinese food as well as Western Portuguese food, which is quite similar to Spanish, and they feel a mixture of Chinese, Asians, and European.
With more than 40 million annual visitors in recent years, the territory is now looking to expand its presence in markets such as Europe.
For last year, we saw the statistics of increasing Spanish people coming to Macau to a double digit.
Tourism is one of the territory's main incomes, with tourists mostly coming from mainland China and Hong Kong, but it now hopes to diversify this profile.
Durante unos días, Madrid ha sido una puerta abierta a Macau, una región de más de 750.000 habitantes dentro de tan solo 30 kilómetros cuadrados. Un lugar donde descubrir su cultura, su gastronomía y su mezcla de influencias sin salir de la ciudad. El evento termina, pero la apuesta de Macau continúa. Acercar el destino al viajero, antes incluso de que empiece el viaje. Juan Carlos de Santos, desde Madrid, para Euronews.